My brother announced, "I'm marrying your wife because she deserves better than you." My wife added, "Finally, I'm with a real man who knows how to treat a woman properly." My brother smirked, "She told me how pathetic you are. You bring shame to the family name." She laughed cruelly, "I should have left you years ago for someone actually successful." I smiled calmly, "She deserves everything she gets." So, a week after their wedding I gifted him everything to rock his world, including the private investigator's report showing her affairs with his groomsmen, best man, and wedding photographer. His honeymoon became complete chaos when he discovered his perfect wife had been cheating with half the wedding party while planning their dream marriage. You ever have one of those moments where everything you thought you knew about your life just crumbles in front of you? Yeah, well, welcome to my world 3 months ago when my entire existence got flipped upside down in the span of about 10 minutes. I'm sitting in my living room on a Tuesday afternoon, minding my own business, scrolling through my phone and enjoying what I thought was a peaceful day off work. The house was quiet, sun streaming through the windows, everything normal. Then my brother Jake walks in like he owns the place, which, looking back, maybe he thought he did. Now, Jake and we've always had this weird competitive thing going on since we were kids. He's 2 years older, always been the golden boy, you know the type. Star athlete in high school, graduated college with honors, landed a great job right out of school. Meanwhile, I was just me. Average grades, decent job, normal life. But I was okay with that, or at least I thought I was. But what happened next? I never saw it coming in a million years. "Hey Cole," he says, and there's this smirk on his face that immediately sets off alarm bells in my head. Not a friendly smile, not a brotherly grin, a smirk. Like he's about to tell me he won the lottery or something. My wife Mia comes down the stairs right then, and I notice she's got this strange look on her face too. Like they're sharing some inside joke that I'm not part of. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and everyone stops talking? That awkward silence where you know they were just discussing you? That's exactly what this felt like, except it was happening in my own living room. "Tell me what?" I ask, setting down my coffee and giving them both my full attention. Jake straightens up, puffs out his chest like he's about to deliver some grand announcement to the United Nations or something. The guy's always been dramatic, but this felt different. Bigger. "I'm marrying your wife because she deserves better than you." I swear, for a solid 5 seconds I thought I misheard him. I mean, what kind of person just drops a bomb like that? In someone's living room? On a Tuesday afternoon? Like announcing they're going to grab lunch or something casual? But before I could even process what he'd said, before my brain could catch up to what my ears had heard, Mia steps forward. And when she opened her mouth, the woman I'd been married to for 5 years became a complete stranger. "Finally," she says, and her voice has this edge to it I'd never heard before. Sharp, cold, almost victorious. "I'm with a real man who knows how to treat a woman properly." Now, you might be wondering how I reacted to this bombshell. Did I scream? Did I throw punches? Did I beg them to reconsider? Did I fall to my knees and plead for my marriage? Nope. Something weird happened instead. Something I still can't fully explain. I just sat there, watching them like I was watching actors in some twisted play. Like this wasn't my life imploding, but someone else's drama that I was observing from a safe distance. Jake's really getting into it now, warming up to his big moment like he's been rehearsing this speech. "She told me how pathetic you are, Cole. You bring shame to the family name." "And Mia?" She actually laughed. This cruel, cold laugh that I'd never heard in our 5 years of marriage. Not once. It was like hearing a completely different person speak. "I should have left you years ago for someone actually successful." Here's the thing about betrayal, sometimes it hits you like a freight train, knocks you flat on your back and leaves you gasping for air. But sometimes, and this is the weird part, it's like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. All those late nights Mia claimed she was working overtime at her job. All those mysterious phone calls she'd take in the other room. All those times Jake would just happen to drop by when I wasn't home, claiming he was checking on Mia or helping with household stuff. All those little comments over the past year about how I could be more ambitious or more decisive or more like successful men she knew. The way she'd compare me to other husbands, other brothers, other men in general. Always subtle, always disguised as helpful suggestions, but now I could see them for what they really were, preparations for this moment. But you know what? Instead of falling apart, instead of breaking down or exploding in anger, I smiled. Calmly. Like the most peaceful, serene smile you can imagine. Like I was sitting in a meditation garden somewhere instead of watching my life get destroyed. "Well," I said, standing up slowly and brushing off my jeans. "She deserves everything she gets." The way they looked at each other after I said that, like they'd just won some major victory, like they'd conquered some great challenge. Jake actually high-fived Mia. High-fived her. In my living room. After announcing they were getting married. The audacity was almost impressive in its completeness. Now, here's where most people would expect me to fight for my marriage, right? Beg Mia to reconsider, maybe punch my brother in the face, call them both every name in the book? But see, here's what they didn't know about me, what nobody knew about me. I'd been suspicious for months. Maybe even longer than that. Little things that didn't add up. Mia's sudden interest in fitness classes that Jake also happened to attend. Her new phone that she guarded like it contained nuclear launch codes. The way she'd started dressing differently, buying new clothes she claimed were for confidence building. How she'd sometimes say Jake's name in her sleep, which she explained away as weird dreams about family gatherings. The credit card statements that showed charges at restaurants I'd never been to, hotels in our own city when she claimed to be working late, purchases at stores she'd never mentioned shopping at. So 3 weeks before this little announcement, 3 weeks before they decided to blow up my world, I'd done something that changed everything. Something that was about to make their fairy tale romance very, very interesting. I hired a private investigator. Ryan Cross was his name, came highly recommended from a lawyer friend, and boy did he deliver results. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. After their big reveal, Jake and Mia wanted me out of the house immediately. Not tomorrow, not next week, immediately. Start packing, Jake said, already acting like he owned the place, already making himself comfortable on my couch. We've got wedding plans to make, and this is going to be our home now. Our home. Like I'd never existed, like I'd never paid a mortgage payment, like I'd never mowed the lawn or fixed the leaky faucet or painted the bedroom walls. How long has this been going on? I asked, just curious now, like asking about the weather. Mia didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. No guilt, no remorse. No acknowledgement that she'd been living a lie for months. 8 months. Maybe longer. Does it matter at this point? 8 months. While I was working extra hours to save for the vacation she'd been begging for, she was planning her exit strategy with my own brother. While I was picking up her favorite coffee every morning before work, she was texting him sweet nothings. While I was listening to her complain about her day and offering support, she was comparing me unfavorably to him in every possible way. The audacity was almost impressive in its scope and completeness. But here's what really got me, Jake started going through my stuff right there in front of me. Not even waiting for me to leave, not showing any respect for the fact that this was still technically my house. Most of this junk can go to charity, he said, tossing my college photos into a box like they were yesterday's newspaper. Mia and I want to start fresh, create our own memories in our own space. He picked up a framed photo of me and my dad from a fishing trip we'd taken years ago. This definitely has to go, he said, dropping it in the charity pile. You've probably been in situations where you wanted to say something but bit your tongue, right? Where every fiber of your being wanted to react but you held back for some reason. Well, I just kept smiling. Because I knew something they didn't know. Something that was going to make their fairy tale romance very, very interesting. I moved out that weekend. Found a decent apartment across town, didn't fight the divorce proceedings, didn't even ask for half the house value or alimony or any of the things I probably could have gotten. Jake and Mia were practically giddy about how mature I was being about everything. They kept commenting on how they'd expected me to be more difficult, more vindictive, more of a problem. They'd apparently prepared for a battle and were surprised by my cooperation. I always knew Cole would do the right thing eventually, Jake told our parents when they announced their engagement 2 weeks later. He's finally stepping aside for someone who can make Mia truly happy. Our parents were horrified, of course. Mom cried for hours when she heard the news. Dad took me aside and asked if I needed him to knock some sense into Jake, maybe have a man-to-man conversation about family loyalty. But I told them the same thing I told everyone who asked, Mia deserves everything she gets. The wedding planning was fast. Suspiciously fast, like they were in some kind of race against time. They booked everything within 2 weeks, venue, caterer, photographer, band, flowers, the works. Mia said she didn't want to wait because she'd already wasted enough time being unhappy and wanted to start her real life as soon as possible. Jake was more than happy to accommodate. He spared no expense, booking the most expensive venue in town, hiring the best caterer, getting the most sought-after photographer. He made sure everyone knew how much he was spending, how much better everything was going to be than anything I could have provided. This is what happens when a woman is with a man who truly values her, he announced at their engagement party. This is what real love looks like. Now here's where it gets interesting. Remember that private investigator I mentioned? Ryan Cross? Well, he'd been following Mia for 3 weeks before Jake and Mia's big announcement, and what he discovered was way more extensive than just an affair with my brother. See, while Mia was busy telling Jake how much better he was than me, how much more successful and attractive and worthwhile he was, she was also keeping herself very busy with several other men. And I mean very busy. Ryan's report read like something out of a soap opera, except it was all real, all documented, all provable. There was Dean Hill, the wedding photographer they'd hired for their dream wedding. Apparently, Mia had been having planning sessions with him that had absolutely nothing to do with camera angles or lighting setups. Multiple sessions, in fact, at his studio, at hotels, even once at our house while I was at work. Then there was Max Vale, Jake's best man, yeah, the same best man who was supposed to stand up for their true love and give a speech about their perfect relationship. Mia had been meeting with Max regularly under the guise of helping plan Jake's bachelor party. And let's not forget about Adam Fox and Miles Day, two of Jake's groomsmen who'd apparently been keeping Mia very entertained during their wedding preparation meetings. Group meetings, individual meetings, you name it. But wait, it gets even better. Ryan had discovered that Mia wasn't just juggling these 5 men during her engagement to Jake. She'd been seeing some of them for months before she ever started her affair with my brother. The woman had been running what basically amounted to a full-time operation, coordinating schedules with multiple men while maintaining her marriage to me and planning a new marriage to Jake. Can you imagine the logistics involved? The mental energy required to keep all those lies straight? Coordinating schedules with 5 different men while planning a wedding with one of them? That takes serious organizational skills and a complete lack of conscience. I sat in my new apartment, reading through Ryan's 50-page report for the 3rd time, and I started laughing. Not bitter laughter, genuine amusement. Because suddenly I realized I hadn't lost a wife and gained an enemy. I'd gained freedom and information. Valuable, devastating information. The report included everything. Photos of Mia entering and leaving hotels with various men. Video footage of her kissing Dean Hill in his photography studio. Hotel receipts showing romantic getaways with Max Vale while Jake thought she was visiting her sister. Text message records between her and Adam Fox that were so explicit I couldn't believe someone would put those words in writing. Phone records showing calls to Miles Day at all hours of the day and night, including during times when she was supposedly having deep conversations with me about our marriage problems. But here's the kicker, Ryan had also uncovered evidence that this wasn't new behavior for Mia. She'd been cheating throughout our entire marriage, not just in the final months. The affairs with Jake's friends were just the latest in a long line of betrayals that stretched back years. I'd been living with a complete stranger, a master manipulator who'd been playing me for a fool from the very beginning. The wedding was set for a Saturday in June. Beautiful venue overlooking the lake, expensive everything. Jake had spared no expense proving he was the better man, the one who truly deserved Mia's love. The guest list was impressive, family, friends, colleagues, everyone who mattered in their social circles. But here's the thing about timing, it's everything in situations like this. I decided to let them have their perfect day. Let them exchange vows in front of 200 family members and friends. Let them cut the cake and dance their first dance. Let them bask in the glory of their true love triumph over my supposed inadequacy. Let them feel like they'd won the greatest prize in the world. Their honeymoon was planned for the Sunday after the wedding. A week in Maui at some luxury resort Jake had been bragging about for months. The kind of place Cole could never afford, he'd told anyone who'd listen. The kind of honeymoon a woman like Mia truly deserves. So I waited. Patience isn't something I was particularly known for before all this happened, but betrayal teaches you things about yourself you never knew existed. I waited through the engagement party where Jake made a 20-minute speech about real love conquering all obstacles. I waited through the bachelor party that Max Vale organized, knowing full well he'd been sleeping with the bride-to-be. I waited through the rehearsal dinner where Mia thanked everyone for supporting their brave decision to choose love over convention and their courage to follow their hearts despite difficult circumstances. The wedding day arrived, and you know what? I even sent a gift. A beautiful crystal vase that cost more than I normally would have spent, with a note that said, "Wishing you both everything you deserve. May you get exactly what's coming to you. Your loving brother, Cole." They loved it. Jake called me that evening to thank me for being so mature and supportive during such a difficult transition. Mia even sent a text message saying she was proud of how I'd handled everything and that she hoped we could all be friends someday and maybe even double date when I found someone new. Friends. Double date. Can you believe the audacity? But the real gift? The gift that would truly rock their world? That was coming later. The wedding went off without a hitch, by all accounts. I heard all about it from our parents, who were still struggling with the whole situation but trying to be supportive. Beautiful ceremony, expensive reception, everyone had a wonderful time. The weather was perfect, the food was amazing, the band was fantastic. Jake and Mia looked radiantly happy in all the photos that got posted online. Picture perfect couple starting their picture perfect life together. The wedding photographer, Dean Hill, remember him? Had done an amazing job capturing their love story. They flew out Sunday morning for their Hawaiian honeymoon. First-class tickets, oceanfront suite at a 5-star resort, couples massages booked, romantic dinners planned at the most exclusive restaurants. Jake had documented every luxury on social media because, well, he's always been the type to make sure everyone knows how well he's doing. Living our best life, read one caption under a photo of them boarding the plane. Finally found my soulmate, said another under a sunset beach photo. This is what real love looks like, accompanied a picture of them at some fancy restaurant. I waited until Wednesday. Right in the middle of their honeymoon week, when they'd be relaxed and settled into their paradise routine, when they'd be feeling most secure in their new life together. That's when I made the call. "Hey Jake," I said when he answered his phone, sounding all relaxed and happy. I could hear ocean waves in the background, the sound of tropical paradise. "Cole. What's up, brother? Everything okay back home?" "Yeah, everything's great. Couldn't be better, actually. I was just thinking about your wedding, and I realized I never gave you your real wedding gift." "What do you mean?" "That vase was perfect. Mia loved it." "No, that was just the warm-up gift, the appetizer if you will. I've got something much better for you. Much more meaningful. Check your email in about 5 minutes." I could hear him moving around, probably walking back to their hotel room from the pool or beach. "What kind of gift comes by email?" "The kind that changes everything. The kind that really shows how much I care about you both." "Oh, and Jake? You might want to make sure Mia's sitting down when you open it. Actually, you might want to be sitting down too." "Cole, you're being weird. What's going on? You're making me nervous." "Nothing to be nervous about. Just open the email when you get back to your room. Subject line says wedding gift from your loving brother. Trust me, you're going to want to see this. Both of you." I hung up and waited. The email I'd sent contained everything. Ryan Cross's complete 50-page report, every photo, every video, every hotel receipt, every text message record, every phone log, 5 months of evidence documenting every single one of Mia's affairs with Jake's best man, groomsmen, and wedding photographer. My phone started ringing 15 minutes later. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. And again. The voicemails were, well, let's just say Jake had some very intense things to say. Things I can't repeat here because of my no profanity policy. But the general theme was shock, rage, disbelief, and a whole lot of questions about when I'd known and why I'd waited to tell him. But here's the beautiful part, I didn't just send the evidence to Jake. See, remember all those groomsmen who'd been keeping Mia company during the wedding planning? Max Vale, Adam Fox, Miles Day? They were all married too. So their wives got copies of everything relevant to their respective husbands. The wedding photographer who'd been having those special planning sessions with the bride? Dean Hill? His business partner got a complete copy, along with his wife. Ever wonder what happens when someone's entire world implodes in the span of one email? When multiple people's worlds implode simultaneously. It's actually pretty spectacular to witness, even from a distance. Jake's phone calls escalated from angry to desperate over the course of that Wednesday afternoon. "Cole, we need to talk. This can't be real. These photos have to be fake. This is some kind of elaborate revenge plot, right?" But Ryan Cross doesn't do fake. The man's thorough, professional, and unfortunately for Jake and Mia, very, very good at his job. Every piece of evidence was authenticated, time-stamped, and legally obtained. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Jake confronted Mia that same evening, and according to the screaming match that half their luxury resort probably heard, she didn't even try to deny it. How could she? The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, and incredibly detailed. But here's where it gets really interesting, where the story takes another twist that even I didn't expect. Jake called me the next day, and his tune had completely changed. Gone was the confident, superior man who'd stolen my wife and humiliated me in front of our family. In his place was someone broken, confused, and desperate for answers. "Cole, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was. I mean, I knew she was cheating on you with me, but I didn't know about the others. I swear I didn't know." "Others?" I said, letting the word hang in the air. "Jake, there were 5 other men." "5? During your engagement. While she was planning your wedding. She was sleeping with your best man, two of your groomsmen, and your wedding photographer. Did you really think you were special? The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could practically hear his world continuing to crumble. She told me you couldn't satisfy her, he finally said, and his voice was small now, defeated. Nothing like the confident, superior tone he'd used 3 months earlier when he announced he was stealing my wife. And you believed her? Without ever asking me about it? Without ever wondering why a woman who claimed to be so unhappy would stay married for 5 years? Without ever questioning why she never filed for divorce if I was really so terrible? I thought I was rescuing her. She made it sound like you were emotionally abusive, like you didn't appreciate her, like you took her for granted. That's when I started laughing again. Not cruel laughter, just genuine amusement at the absurdity of it all. Jake, you weren't rescuing anyone. You were just another conquest in her collection. Did you really think someone who would cheat on their husband with his brother would suddenly become faithful to the brother? Did you think you had some magical quality that would make her stop being who she fundamentally is? But she said she loved me. She said what we had was different, special. She told you what you wanted to hear. Just like she told Max Vale he was special, and Adam Fox he was special, and Miles Day he was special, and Dean Hill he was special. You were all special, Jake. Every single one of you. The divorce proceedings that followed were swift and brutal. Mia tried to claim she'd been confused and going through a difficult emotional time, but the evidence was too overwhelming. Her lawyer advised her to settle quickly and quietly. Jake's lawyer, on the other hand, advised him to run, not walk, away from that marriage and never look back. But the damage was already done, and it extended far beyond just Jake and Mia. The story spread through our hometown like wildfire because, let's face it, this was the kind of scandal that people love to talk about. The man who'd publicly humiliated his brother for being pathetic and unsuccessful was now the guy who'd been played by his own bride with half his wedding party. The woman who'd claimed to be seeking true love had been revealed as someone who collected men like some people collect stamps. The groomsmen's marriages all imploded too, each one a domino falling in sequence. Adam Fox's wife filed for divorce within a week of receiving the evidence. Miles Day got kicked out of his house and had to move back in with his parents at age 32. Max Vale, Jake's former best man, lost his job when his boss, who happened to be his father-in-law, found out about the affair. And Dean Hill, the wedding photographer? His business partnership dissolved overnight when his partner realized what kind of special packages Dean had been offering female clients. His wife left him, and several previous clients started questioning whether their own wedding photos had come with extra services. The ripple effects were extraordinary. 5 marriages destroyed, multiple families torn apart, careers ruined, reputations obliterated. All because one woman couldn't be satisfied with just one man, or 2 men, or even 3 men. But you know what the most satisfying part was? It wasn't the revenge. It wasn't watching Jake's world crumble or seeing Mia's reputation destroyed throughout our entire social circle. It wasn't even the poetic justice of their honeymoon becoming a nightmare. It was the realization that I'd been free all along and just hadn't known it. See, when someone shows you who they really are, you should believe them the first time. Mia had been showing me for months, maybe years, that she was capable of deception, manipulation, and betrayal. I just hadn't been paying attention to the signs. Jake had been showing me his whole life that he saw everything as a competition and didn't care who he hurt to win. I just hadn't realized I was one of his targets until it was too late to matter. The funniest part? About a month after their divorce was finalized, after all the legal proceedings were complete and the dust had settled, Jake called me again. "Cole, I owe you an apology. A huge one. The biggest apology one person can owe another." "You think?" "I was wrong about everything. About you, about Mia, about what love looks like, about what loyalty means. She played me just like she played you, except worse because I should have known better." "Should you have?" "I'm your brother. I should have talked to you first before believing anything she said. I should have questioned her motives. I should have. I can't believe I was so stupid, so blind, so selfish." Here's where most people would expect me to forgive him, right? To say something about family being more important than grudges, about moving forward and healing, about brothers needing to stick together through thick and thin. But see, that's not how betrayal works. You don't get to destroy someone's life, humiliate them publicly, steal their spouse, and then apologize your way back to normal just because you realized you were wrong about everything. "Jake," I said, "I told you from the very beginning that Mia deserved everything she got. That included you. You both deserved each other, and you both deserved exactly what you got. So we're not We can't fix this? Can't find a way back to being brothers? There's nothing to fix. You made your choice. You chose to believe her over me. You chose to humiliate me in front of our family. You chose to take my wife and my house and act like you were doing the world a favor. These weren't mistakes, Jake. These were choices. Deliberate, calculated choices. The line went quiet for a long time. I could hear him breathing, probably trying to figure out what to say next. What if I told you I'd learned my lesson? He finally asked. I'd say you learned the wrong lesson. The lesson isn't that Mia was a bad person who fooled you. The lesson is that you were willing to destroy your brother's life for someone you'd known intimately for 8 months. The lesson is that you thought so little of me that you believed every negative thing she said without question. Cole. The lesson, Jake, is that when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them. Mia showed you she was a cheater from day one. She cheated on me with you. You showed me you weren't the brother I thought you were when you chose her over family loyalty. I hung up after that conversation. Haven't talked to him since, and honestly, I don't plan to. You're probably wondering about me, right? How I'm doing now, whether I'm bitter about everything that happened, if I've managed to move on with my life. Here's the thing about revenge, the best kind isn't the kind you plan and execute. It's the kind that happens naturally when people's true natures catch up with them. I didn't destroy Jake and Mia's marriage. They did that all by themselves with their own choices and actions. I just documented it. I just provided the evidence of what they'd already done. I'm doing great now, by the way. Better than great, actually. Better than I've ever been in my entire adult life. Turns out that when you remove toxic people from your life, even when those people are your wife and brother, you discover who you really are underneath all that manipulation and gaslighting. I bought a house 6 months after everything went down. Smaller than the one I shared with Mia, but it's completely mine. Really mine. No shared mortgage, no compromise on decorating, no one questioning my choices or making me feel like I need to justify my decisions. I travel now, something Mia always claimed we couldn't afford but somehow Jake could manage for their honeymoon. I've been to places I'd only dreamed about before. I've taken up hobbies I'd forgotten I enjoyed, photography, hiking, cooking, reading books that actually interest me instead of the relationship self-help books Mia was always recommending. I sleep better than I have in years. No more lying awake wondering why my wife seemed distant, no more questioning whether I was doing enough or being enough. No more walking on eggshells, trying to avoid triggering one of Mia's moods or disappointing her in some new way. And dating? Well, let's just say that when you've survived betrayal on that level, you develop pretty good instincts about people's character. You learn to spot the red flags early. You learn the difference between someone who loves you and someone who loves what you can do for them. You learn to recognize manipulation tactics, guilt trips, and emotional blackmail from a mile away. You learn to trust your gut when something doesn't feel right, instead of ignoring those feelings and hoping they'll go away. Most importantly, you learn that the opinions of people who would betray you aren't worth very much. Our parents ask about Jake sometimes. They want to know if I think we'll ever reconcile, if I miss having a brother, if I think family should forgive family no matter what happens. But here's what I tell them, Jake is still my brother. That's a biological fact that can't be changed by divorce papers or hurt feelings. But brotherhood is more than biology. It's loyalty, respect, trust, love, support. Jake proved he was my brother in blood but not in spirit. Blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty makes you family. And Jake chose Mia over family loyalty. Mia? I honestly barely think about her anymore. She was a chapter in my life that's closed now, filed away under lessons learned and bullets dodged. Sometimes I hear updates through mutual friends, apparently she's dating someone new now, some guy she met at a coffee shop who doesn't know about her history. I wonder if she's told him about her tendency to collect men like some people collect trading cards, but that's his problem to figure out. I wonder if he knows he's probably not the only one, but again, not my circus, not my monkeys. The private investigator, Ryan Cross, sent me a Christmas card last year. Said my case was one of the most satisfying he'd ever worked on because justice was served so perfectly and completely. He wasn't wrong. But you want to know the real ending to this story? The real revenge that makes everything else pale in comparison? It's this: I'm happy. Genuinely, deeply, authentically happy in a way I never was with Mia. I wake up every morning in my own house, make my own coffee, plan my own day, and I don't have to worry about who's lying to me or betraying me or undermining me behind my back. I don't have to wonder if the person sharing my bed is also sharing someone else's. I don't have to question whether my family members are plotting against me. I don't have to walk on eggshells or constantly try to prove my worth to people who don't value me. Jake lost everything that mattered: his marriage, his reputation, his self-respect, the respect of our family, and his relationship with his brother. Mia lost everything too: 2 marriages, her reputation throughout our social circle, her home, her financial security, and any claim to moral high ground. And me? I lost a cheating wife and a disloyal brother. Sounds like I came out way ahead in that trade, doesn't it? Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you do to people who hurt you. Sometimes it's simply living well without them. Sometimes it's just letting them face the natural consequences of their own choices while you build something better from the ground up. Sometimes it's watching them destroy themselves while you step back and let justice do its work. Because here's the final truth about betrayal: it reveals character. Not just the character of the people who betray you, but your own character and how you respond to it. I could have fought dirty from the beginning. I could have exposed everything immediately and destroyed their wedding day. I could have turned our entire family against them with a few well-timed revelations. I could have made their lives miserable in 1,000 small ways. But instead, I let them have their moment of triumph. I let them believe they'd won the greatest prize in the world. I let them enjoy their victory, plan their future, build their dreams right up until the moment reality came crashing down around them like a house of cards. And when it did crash down, it was their own actions that caused the destruction, not mine. I just provided the documentation. I just held up a mirror and forced them to see what they'd really done. That's the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is what you do to someone. Justice is what they do to themselves when their choices catch up with them. Jake and Mia thought they were writing a love story about finding true happiness and overcoming obstacles. Instead, they wrote a cautionary tale about the price of betrayal, the consequences of deception, and the inevitable collapse that comes when you build a relationship on lies. And me? I'm writing a completely different story now. One where the main character learns, grows, heals, and builds something better from the ashes of what others destroyed. One where the hero doesn't need revenge because he discovers that living well is the ultimate victory. Turns out that's a much better story anyway. And the best part? It's not fiction. It's my real life, and it's better than anything I could have imagined when I was sitting in that living room listening to my world fall apart. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. Sometimes betrayal is actually liberation in disguise. Sometimes the people who hurt you the most are actually doing you the biggest favor of your life. They're showing you who they really are and setting you free to find something better. Thank you, Mia. Thank you, Jake. Thank you for showing me exactly who you are. Thank you for setting me free. But wait, there's more to this story that I haven't told you yet. See, the aftermath of my little wedding gift kept unfolding in ways I never could have predicted. About 2 months after the honeymoon disaster, I got a call from someone I never expected to hear from again: Chloe West, Mia's older sister. Now, Chloe and I had always gotten along well during my marriage, but she'd been surprisingly supportive of Mia and Jake's relationship when it went public. I figured she was just being loyal to family. "Cole," she said, and I could hear something different in her voice. "Regret, maybe? I need to apologize to you for something." "What for?" "I knew. About Mia and Jake, I mean. I knew months before they told you." Now that was interesting. "How long did you know?" "Almost a year. Mia told me she was having problems in your marriage, said she'd met someone who understood her better. I thought it was just some random guy from work or something. When she finally told me it was Jake." Chloe paused. "I should have warned you. I should have said something. You know what's funny about betrayal? It's like peeling an onion: just when you think you've gotten to the bottom of it, there's another layer underneath." "Why didn't you?" I asked. "Honestly? Mia convinced me you were emotionally distant, that you didn't appreciate her. She made it sound like your marriage was already over and she was just trying to be happy. She's always been good at making herself the victim in every situation." That last part hit home. Mia had always had this talent for rewriting history to make herself look sympathetic. If she was late, it was because someone else hadn't given her clear directions. If she forgot something important, it was because she was overwhelmed by other people's demands. If she was unhappy, it was always someone else's fault. But after everything came out, Chloe continued, after I saw those photos and realized what she'd really been doing. "Cole, I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve any of this." It was nice to hear, but it also made me wonder, how many other people had known something was wrong and chosen to stay silent? How many friends, family members, co-workers had seen signs and decided it wasn't their business? The ripple effects of that honeymoon revelation kept spreading for months. Remember Max Vale, Jake's best man who'd been sleeping with Mia? Well, his divorce got ugly fast. Really ugly. His wife Nora hired a forensic accountant who discovered Max had been spending thousands of dollars on hotels and gifts for Mia over the past year. Money that came from his and Nora's joint savings account. Nora sued him for everything, claiming financial infidelity on top of regular infidelity. She got the house, the cars, half his retirement account, and hefty alimony payments. Max ended up having to move in with his elderly parents and take a second job just to cover his expenses. But here's the kicker, Nora sent me a thank you card. An actual thank you card, like I'd done her some kind of favor. "Thank you for giving me the evidence I needed to see who I really married," it said. "I'm filing for divorce tomorrow and finally getting the life I deserve." Can you imagine getting a thank you card for destroying someone's marriage? Though I guess technically I didn't destroy it, I just revealed what was already destroyed. Adam Fox's situation was even more dramatic. His wife Lila didn't just file for divorce, she went nuclear. She printed out every text message between Adam and Mia, every hotel receipt, every photo, and mailed copies to Adam's boss, his parents, his siblings, and every mutual friend they had. Adam worked at a family-owned business, his uncle's construction company, and his uncle was not amused to discover his nephew had been using company credit cards to pay for hotel rooms with other women. Adam got fired immediately and blacklisted from every construction company in town. Last I heard, he was working at a fast food place and living in a studio apartment across town. His kids won't even talk to him anymore. Miles Day tried to play it differently. When his wife Ruby confronted him with the evidence, he broke down crying and begged for forgiveness. Said it was a mistake, that he'd been seduced, that Mia had taken advantage of him during a vulnerable time in his life. Ruby actually considered giving him another chance, until she did some digging of her own and discovered this wasn't Miles' first affair. Turned out he'd been cheating on and off throughout their entire marriage, and Mia was just the latest in a long line of women he'd betrayed Ruby with. Ruby didn't just divorce him, she started a blog called Cheaters Exposed where she documented everything about Miles' affairs, including photos, text messages, and detailed timelines. The blog went viral in our town. Miles became locally famous for all the wrong reasons. And Dean Hill, the wedding photographer? His story might be the most satisfying of all. See, after his business partnership dissolved and his wife left him, Dean thought he could just start over in a new town. He moved 3 hours away and tried to rebuild his photography business. But in the age of social media, reputation follows you everywhere. His former clients started leaving reviews on every platform they could find, warning other brides about his unprofessional conduct. His Google reviews, his Facebook page, his website, all flooded with warnings about his behavior. Dean's new photography business failed within 6 months. Last I heard, he was working at a department store and living with his brother. But the most unexpected consequence of all this? It changed how I see people entirely. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. How certain friends had been subtly questioning my marriage for years. How some family members had made comments about Mia that I dismissed at the time but now realized were warnings. My friend Jude, for instance, had once mentioned that Mia seemed too friendly with other men at parties. I brushed it off as jealousy or misunderstanding, but now I realized he'd been trying to tell me something important. My cousin Vera had once asked me if I was really happy in my marriage, and when I said yes, she'd given me this look like she wanted to say more but held back. Now I understood what that look meant. Even my dad had once mentioned that he didn't understand what Mia brought to the table in our relationship, which I'd taken as him being old-fashioned and not understanding modern marriages. Now I realized he'd seen something I'd missed. It made me wonder, how many people live in situations where everyone around them can see problems they can't see themselves? How many times do we ignore the people trying to help us because we're too invested in our own version of reality? I also started thinking about Jake differently. Not with forgiveness, I'm still not ready for that and may never be, but with a kind of clinical understanding of who he'd always been. Growing up, Jake had always needed to be the best at everything. If I got good grades, he had to get better grades. If I made a sports team, he had to make varsity. If I brought a girlfriend to a family dinner, he had to find reasons why she wasn't good enough for me. I'd always attributed this to normal sibling rivalry, but now I could see it for what it really was, a fundamental inability to let anyone else have something good without trying to take it away. Mia hadn't been the first thing Jake had tried to take from me. She was just the biggest thing, the most successful theft in a lifetime of smaller victories over his little brother. When we were kids, he'd borrow my toys and never return them. In high school, he'd ask out girls he knew I liked, not because he was interested in them, but because he couldn't stand the idea of me having something he didn't. In college, he tried to get me to drop out of a program I loved because he couldn't get accepted into it himself. The pattern had always been there. I just hadn't recognized it as a pattern until he took it too far. This realization led me to examine other relationships in my life. Were there other people who saw me as competition rather than as someone they cared about? Were there other relationships built on hidden resentments or unspoken jealousies? I started setting different boundaries with people. I stopped sharing good news with people who responded with backhanded comments or subtle put-downs. I stopped making excuses for people who consistently made me feel worse about myself after spending time with them. It was like cleaning house, but with relationships instead of possessions. The dating world was a completely different experience after everything I'd learned. I could spot manipulation tactics from a mile away now. When someone tried to make me feel guilty for having boundaries, I recognized it immediately. When someone tried to isolate me from friends or family, red flags went up instantly. I met a woman named Iris about 8 months after the divorce was finalized. She was different from anyone I'd dated before, direct, honest, secure in herself. When I told her my story, she didn't try to psychoanalyze Mia or make excuses for Jake's behavior. She just listened and said, "That must have been incredibly difficult, but it sounds like you handled it perfectly." No drama, no attempts to fix me or heal me or help me work through my trust issues. Just acceptance and respect for how I'd chosen to handle an impossible situation. We've been together for over a year now, and the difference between this relationship and my marriage is like the difference between breathing fresh air and breathing through a straw. Everything is easier, more natural, more honest. Iris knows about my past, but she doesn't define me by it. She doesn't try to compete with ghosts or prove she's better than Mia. She just shows up as herself and lets me show up as myself. That's when I realized what a healthy relationship actually looks like: two people who choose each other every day, not because they need something from each other, but because they genuinely enjoy each other's company and want to build something together. The legal aftermath of everything took almost 2 years to fully resolve. There were multiple divorce proceedings, custody battles, financial settlements, and even a few criminal charges filed. Turns out that using company credit cards to pay for affairs is considered embezzlement in some circumstances. I testified in 3 different divorce cases, providing evidence and context for what had happened. Each time, I watched as marriages that had probably been struggling for years finally collapsed under the weight of revealed truth. But here's what struck me most about those court proceedings: not one of the cheating spouses seemed to understand why their partners were so angry. They all acted like everyone was overreacting, like what they'd done wasn't really that serious. Mia, in particular, seemed genuinely confused by the level of rage and disgust directed at her. In her deposition, she kept saying things like, "It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone and we were all adults making adult decisions." She seemed to genuinely believe that as long as she was having fun and getting what she wanted, the impact on other people didn't really matter. It was a level of self-centeredness that was almost impressive in its completeness. Jake was different. He knew what he'd done was wrong, but he kept trying to minimize it or deflect responsibility. "Mia seduced me," he claimed. "I was just trying to help someone I thought was in a bad situation." Even after seeing all the evidence of Mia's other affairs, he still couldn't admit that he'd been just another mark in her con game. His ego wouldn't let him accept that he hadn't been special or chosen or particularly desirable, just available and willing. The town's reaction to everything was fascinating to watch from the outside. Small towns love a good scandal, but they also love clear heroes and villains. I became the sympathetic figure, the wronged husband who'd handled everything with dignity and grace. Jake and Mia became cautionary tales, examples of what happens when you let greed and selfishness override basic decency. Parents started using their story to teach their teenagers about the importance of loyalty and honesty in relationships. Local businesses started refusing to serve some of the people involved. The hotel where Mia had conducted several of her affairs banned her from the premises. The restaurant where she and Jake had their first public date as a couple asked them to leave when they tried to come back. It was like watching a community collectively decide who deserved their respect and who didn't. But the most unexpected part of this whole experience? The number of people who reached out to share their own stories of betrayal and how my example had helped them handle their situations differently. I got letters, emails, phone calls from people I'd never met, thanking me for showing them that you don't have to fight dirty to win. That sometimes the best response to betrayal is simply stepping back and letting the truth speak for itself. One woman wrote to tell me that her husband had been cheating with her sister, and instead of creating drama or seeking immediate revenge, she'd hired her own private investigator and gathered evidence before confronting them. The result was a clean divorce where she got everything she deserved and her ex-husband couldn't claim he was the victim. Another man told me his business partner had been embezzling money and trying to force him out of their company. Instead of confronting him immediately, he documented everything and presented it to their board of directors all at once. His partner was fired and faced criminal charges, while he kept the business they'd built together. People started calling it the Cole approach, gathering all your facts, staying calm, and revealing everything at the perfect moment for maximum impact. I never intended to become anyone's role model, but apparently showing grace under pressure and refusing to stoop to someone else's level makes an impression on people. The irony wasn't lost on me. Jake and Mia had tried to humiliate me and make me look pathetic, but their betrayal had actually revealed strength and character I didn't even know I possessed. Sometimes the worst thing people do to you becomes the catalyst for becoming the best version of yourself. And that, my friends, might be the most beautiful revenge of all, not just surviving someone's attempt to destroy you, but thriving because of it. Not just healing from betrayal, but becoming stronger, wiser, and more authentic because you were forced to rebuild from the ground up. Jake wanted to prove he was better than me. Instead, he proved I was better than I ever knew I could be. Mia wanted to trade up to someone more successful and exciting. Instead, she lost everything that actually mattered and ended up with nothing but a reputation for being untrustworthy. They thought they were writing my ending. Instead, they wrote their own.